Flying is tough, man. Flying is tough. I don't know how Ra does it. Welcome to episode 3 of Art History or Simplified. In this episode, we'll talk about Indus Valley's business partner, Mesopotamia. Mesopotamian civilization beginning from 4000 BC is a contemporary to Indus and soon Egypt. Mesopotamian civilization is situated near the rivers Tigris and Euphrates. Unlike Indus, Tigris and Euphrates are violent and unpredictable rivers and would flood constantly and violently, destroying nearby villages, making things difficult to farm and irrigate on it, and would require an intense amount of labor and slavery to do the job. And because of it, it created this social structure which lasted for thousands of years and changed with the end of the civilization. In the previous episode, we talked about the 4 criteria of civilization and wrote an entire episode accordingly. Whereas in this one, I want to try something different and I will reorder the criteria here and there. So please be mindful. As Tigris and Euphrates are very random and violent rivers, and these rivers hold a very important place in Mesopotamian civilization's heart, they concluded that gods are random and they should be praised and should be kept happy. Takes us to...
You want me to speak?
Yes. You're talking to me? I'm just referencing a movie, okay? Don't get mad at me. Yeah. Me too. Different movies. Takes us to the 4th criteria of civilization, unity under a belief system. Religious text or... One of the most famous structures of Mesopotamia are these giant ziggurats, which are places of worship and where priests and priestesses live. By the way, have you seen the movie Blade Runner? Tyrell Corporation is totally a ziggurat. All the info we know about the gods and day-to-day culture comes from the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the few surviving works of literature alongside the creation of an empire and trading records. The Epic of Gilgamesh is a video of its own, so I will link some resources in the description below for your further reading. But I must tell you, in the story of Gilgamesh, don't spoil it, man. What's wrong with you? The literary works such as the Epic of Gilgamesh and the story of Sargon of Akkad are not completely available. For example, this is what Gilgamesh's story looks like. Archaeologists and researchers over the years have found chunks of stories from different places and have collected stories from Sumerian records and oral traditions. They have even found multiple versions of the stories where the Sumerian and Akkadian gods are mentioned. If you are interested, I will link a video by Crash Course on this very topic. The scripts are called cuneiform and the spoken language at the time was Sumerian, making things easier for archaeologists and researchers to decipher these small chunks of clay tablets. Cuneiform alphabets are consistent and structured compared to their Indus counterparts, making things easier to translate comparatively. But you may be thinking, Akkadian, Sumerian, what am I talking about? So let's go to the 2nd criteria of any civilization, cities. Mesopotamian civilization, who also became the world's first empire. Copyright. Before that, Mesopotamia was divided into city-states controlled by the military tribe leaders or rich traders who later got involved and did sacred marriages with the priestess and became the priest kings. Yeah, priestess, remember them from the ziggurats? No, not that one. Yeah, that one. By the way, this is the ziggurat of Ur, nice guy, one of the last surviving ziggurats in proper condition. So the tribal kings, who then became the priest kings, started controlling the cities and started making their own laws and ethics. This seesaw between God and man is the common theme between these empires. Soon the king, Sargon of Akkad, captured the city Sumer, making its capital, and built the world's first empire. Copyright. The Akkadian Empire in 2300 BC. Empire by definition means an extensive group of states or countries ruled over by a single monarch or a sovereign state. The empire is diverse, and this diversity is something the later empires play with and utilize. But more on that later. One of the most important things Sargon did was making Sumerian a common speaking language and cuneiform the writing and reading system for the elites. After uniting city-states under his empire, he erected many giant murals with text boasting and acting as a record of Sargon's might. Also, the building of palaces were seen as a challenge to the gods, making the kings equal to the gods, acting as a propaganda for the king's might. As a fun fact, to differentiate between gods and kings in Mesopotamian art, just look at their crowns. The crowns of the gods looks like it's made from 1,000 horns coming together to making the crown, whereas a king's crowns look like a bucket hat. But in later period, we see kings' crowns looking more similar to that of the gods. The tablet of Sargon was made 1,000 years after his death, so there could be inaccuracies. Also, the chunks are missing, it's broken, and like every cuneiform ever found in Mesopotamia, it's incomplete, so we'll never know. So, yeah. After Akkadian came a new empire known as Babylonian Empire, led by King Hammurabi. I like that name. In 1792 BC. King Hammurabi gave us the code of laws and ethics and military tactics. Hammurabi's code of law is what gave us the concepts such as trial of innocence and the most famous an eye for an eye makes the whole world calm. During Hammurabi's reign, trade flourished, making the empire prosperous. But it didn't last that long, as the inner conflict between the kings and constant invasion of nomadic tribes weakened the empire, something which is a common theme between these empires. And soon, Assyrians captured Babylonia and became the new rulers in 911 BC. They are a very important part in Mesopotamian history as they expanded the empire to its furthest, covering Indus and even Egypt. Their military power was such that they are recorded in history as strong and cruel. They are known for their siege strategies and using chariots and bows for their military invasion. Assyrians defined the world empire. As their empire was huge, they constantly shift skilled laborers from one part of the empire to another, cutting them away from their history and their roots. So what made Assyrians so strong? Well, the answer lies in their origins. The Assyrians are from the city Assur, and their king Assur I in 1300 brought military ideas. King Assur then became the god Assur. The entire philosophy of Assyrians is well put in Professor Paul's book Babylon. Assyria soon discovered a painful truth. Empires are like Ponzi schemes. They must continue to expand if they are not to collapse. Paul Karvasek, Babylon. Everywhere Assyrians went, they preached this philosophy by erecting giant monuments in the name of Assur. They even made many murals showing their victories. Remember when I said Assyrians forced migration of laborers around the empire? Yeah, people didn't like that. I don't know why. And they started revolting. You have to understand, kings like Sargon, Hammurabi and the Assyrians were once the local leaders of the respected city-states. And like them, there were many nomadic tribes capturing these small cities and growing power. So the people who were already dissatisfied with the current king were habituated seeing this constant power change. But how it ended? When your entire empire is based on the idea that conquest shouldn't stop as it brings doom, one defeat is enough to change your entire worldview. And that's what happens to Assyrians in 612 BC when King Nebuchadnezzar II captured Nineveh, defeating Assyrians and ended the empire. He started the Neo-Babylonian Empire with an oath to bring Babylon to its old glory. It was during his reign when the ancient wonder, the Hanging Gardens of Babylonia, were made. But with an empire so big and in constant conflict with city-states, nomadic tribes, revolts, and inept administration, weakened the empire and made it easier for the next big force to invade, Persians. But we will discuss Persian in episode 7. Before that, we have to cover the two main players, Egypt and Greece. Done? Oh yeah, the first and third criteria, food and trading. Okay. So as I said in the beginning of the video, Tigris and Euphrates are very violent and irregular rivers, making it difficult to farm and cultivate. So the Mesopotamians come with a very clever idea. So the Mesopotamian cities would have a central storage system where farmers would collect all the grains and produce in one place, which would be later equally distributed among the citizens. This pseudo-socialism was going really well, and then military leaders and rich traders who later became kings changed the whole system, in which a person can earn as much as they want as long as they give a pay to the empire. Taxes. All this info is available in the form of cuneiform clay tablets which hold the records of all the details and exchanges. Most of the information on the tablets are about exchanges of sheep for wheat and copper for cotton. I'll link all the info and resources under the description which I found useful. But this time with Wikipedia links, I'm also linking some YouTube videos which I found informative and entertaining. If you are using those YouTube links, then please go and like those videos, and please comment that Kavya Kumar Bhatt sent you here or KKB Design Studios sent you here to help and promote the channel. It would mean the world. You can also buy my merch to support this channel as well. So I thank you again for watching my videos, liking, subscribing and sharing with other people and telling them to subscribe as well. It means a lot. So I'll see you next week with Egyptian civilization. This is Kavya Kumar Bhatt signing off.